Good morning, and welcome to the first episode of Bo's Garage. I'm going to do something a little fun here today. I'm going to do an in-depth kind of buyer's guide for people that are not the most mechanically inclined. Now, obviously, most of us are pretty mechanically inclined. We know what we're doing. We know how to work on cars. But there are a lot of people out there, people like, my sister perhaps, and a few others, that don't know their way around a car. So this is a buyer's guide for people like you who, if you're that kind of person, who want to look at a used car. And we're going to use my 2015 Nissan Titan as a test mule, per se, to show you what to look for when you're going to purchase a car. Now, obviously, the first thing you're going to do is take a look at the body condition. Now, you see some dents in the bumper and scrapes and all that. Now, to me, I don't pay that any attention because you know what? Things happen. Heck, this brand new Buick next to us right here has got scrapes all the way down it and dents on it. Why? Because my wife will take this car anywhere, and yeah, if you're married, you already know what it is. But we're going to get in depth, and we're going to show you what to look for, how to look for, and what to check when you're looking at a used car. Now, sticking to the exterior of the car, the first thing you're going to do before we even crack open the door and start looking, we're going to look at the body. Now, here around the New Orleans area where we're at, you don't worry too much about rust. Now, if you're looking like in Biloxi on the Gulf Coast, rust is a little more apparent. Or if you're up north in the Salt Belt, well, I can't really give you an in-depth guide to check where rust is. I can kind of go off of what I know here in the South. So the first thing I always do when it comes to a truck body is I check right here in this fender well. Now, obviously, this truck has never been in salt and ice, so this is going to be all solid. You'll notice the fuel door has a little trouble here, so it doesn't sit quite right. Not a big deal. The little rubber grommet's gone. And over time, stuff like that happens. But you look at the body, and you see the body is straight. You don't see anything out of whack, out of line. All the panel gaps look correct. Looks like, our guys over in Jackson, Mississippi put this truck together pretty good. All right. The next thing you're going to do, especially when you have large open spoke wheels like this, you're going to look at the brakes. And you're going to look at these rotors. Now, off the top of your head, I don't expect you to be able to pinpoint that brakes are bad. But if you look at the rotors and you can see the fins or it's all gouged up looking on it, that's a problem. Let me bring you in closer. If you see this here, now this surface rust is not much. These are new rotors, so that's kind of typical. But you see that wear on the shiny part of the rotor? That's normal. That's what you want to see. So now we've moved around to the back of the pickup truck. As you see, the tailgate is in good condition. There's a little bit of wear here, but we can attribute that to exactly this bumper. You can see where the bumper has been damaged due to accidents, or in the case of this truck here, it was backing into a stump once and then snagging it on a short tree. But you know what? That's a useful tool for your negotiations. Now, as we see here, there is a backup camera on the truck, and the camera shows to be in its spot. So you open up, like this one has a tonneau cover, and you see, just ignore all the junk in here. This is our truck. Now, Titans, especially the later of the first generation Titans, are equipped with an easy assist tailgate. So it means it will drop with ease. Well, let's check that. As you see, it functions properly. So, the latching closes, not much wobbling besides what you would expect from it. So, we're good there. Alright, so now we're on the opposite side of the body. And you see, if you look down the side of the body, everything is straight, lined up properly. There's no rust. The bed walls and body all are in good shape. Now we're going to move to the inside of the truck to show what to start checking for when you're going to look at the truck. Alright, so one thing I always check is the door handles, especially these modern cars with plastic door handles. Nissan's is not as bad as it, but I know with the Chevrolet trucks and your GMC trucks are really bad about these door handles. Now we're gonna open her on up. Mind the mess, but you'll see, the seat's got some wear in it. So we're gonna climb into the truck now. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my key here, and I'm not gonna start the truck, but I'm going to power the cluster up. Now that's a good sign right there. If it would focus, the check engine light is on, oil pressure light is on, temperature light is on, but the truck is not firing, is not running currently. So that tells me that the person that you're purchasing this car from didn't take the check engine light out. If you turn the switch on without starting it and that light does not come on, they've covered it, and that means the car could have a code on it and there could be an issue. The same with your overheat temperature light and your oil pressure light, and here comes the helicopter. Now, before I crank it, let's go look under the hood. Never mind the dog barking, that's just kind of what we have to deal with every day. So we're going to get under the hood here and start checking. Now, first indicator, the hood shots are good because the hood is staying up. You're going to have to sit here and hold it. That's always something to look for because those little boogers are usually about $30, $40 a piece at like AutoZone, O'Reilly's, or one of those stores. All right, so we're going to get in here and start checking. The first thing I always check on any used truck is I will take the radiator cap off. Now, a little bit of corrosion buildup isn't a big deal to me. Now, obviously, the Titan, you can't really see into the radiator that well. So we're going to go over here to our overflow tank and take a gander too. A lot of cars don't even have this radiator cap. A lot of them nowadays have just the coolant overflow tank. Now, obviously, do not make sure the engine is, always make sure the engine is cold when you look at this. But you're going to want to look down inside of there. All right, so we're back here. Now, this is a antifreeze tester. You can get one of these at Walmart, O'Reilly's, Advanced Auto Parts, any kind of place you can get automotive things. They're usually about $3-4, and to me, they're worth every penny. And what you can do here, step it right down that coolant, squeeze it. And it's going to give you a reading for that antifreeze. Now, this has got protection, boil over to 129 degrees centigrade or 265 degrees Fahrenheit. On the back, it'll tell you it's good to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and it also gives you a chance to look at the coloration of the antifreeze. Now, see, this is nice, clear blue coolant, which is what this Nissan's supposed to have, so you don't see any oil or clouding. If it looks like chocolate milk, you've got a blown head gasket. So we're going to take, or bad EGR coolers, other things, but basically, if it looks like chocolate milk, just walk away. You don't need this car. All right, so we're going to close that. The next thing to look at, we're going to go to the dipstick here, which is our engine oil dipstick. Now, granted, the engine oil is nice and fresh and clean in this truck because I just changed it. But you'll take it, pull it out the first time, clean it off, and then pull it back out again and take a gander at the level and what the oil looks like. Now, if it's clean and pretty, it's already had a fresh oil change, but sometimes it'll be black and, ready for a change. Me personally, when I go look at a car, I kind of hope to see if it's black because then I can tell how the engine has been running. Because if you take and feel it, feels nice and good, well, it's just regular oil. But if it feels very gritty or smells like gas, then you have an issue. And put that dipstick back in there. Now, you also check your transmission dipstick here. I don't have the 10 millimeter right now to pop that off, but Basically, most trucks have a transmission dipstick, especially your older trucks. And you would pull that and check the fluid. If the fluid is very dark, red, and black, there's a problem. Now, if it's very bright pinkish, then it's clean and it's fresh. And that can mean either it's been serviced recently or it is, fresh transmission, because that happens. Transmission, especially if it's a GM truck. GM trucks go through transmissions like Dodges did in the 90s. Now, you also could check here at your power steering reservoir. And I don't really have anything to pull. I'm not going to put in the antifreeze tester. But, you can kind of just dip your finger in there. Looks like good power steering fluid. So, we're going to clean that one up. All right. Now, we're going to get over here, the side of the engine. This is your brake master cylinder. This is your brakes. Now, I always check this. The fluid looks clean and clear, so it's been serviced. Or been replaced. Granted, this one was serviced. I did the full brake flush on this truck. That's another thing. If the fluid is very black and nasty looking, I would use that in my negotiations. Anything you see that's out of whack is always good for negotiations. One thing you could do too, if you feel like looking, especially if it has a very easy cover like this with just little snaps, is you pop open your air cleaner and look at that air filter. This one's relatively clean, because most dealerships will take and go ahead and throw a air filter in it because they're cheap. But, your Joe Smo on the corner might not. But that's a thing to check. That's just if you're like me and you want to make sure that your car has been maintained. And then you're going to fight for 15 minutes to get the cleaner back on, because that's the one thing Nissan did not engineer well on these trucks. There. Alright, this is just your washer fluid reservoir. I really never care to look at that. Another thing to do, and I'll bring you in on this one, but you check your serpentine belt. Now, if it's a front-wheel drive vehicle like a Honda Ridgeline or a Honda Pilot or a Civic, the engine's sideways under here, so the belt will be on this side. If it's a rear-wheel drive or four-wheel drive vehicle like this Titan pickup truck or a Ford F-150 or whatever have you, the belt will be right here at the front. And you can look down at it and see if it looks kind of glazed, like almost like a glazed donut, real shiny. Or if it's cracked up, then you know, hey, it's going to need a belt soon. You can use that to your negotiation. Because depending on the car, it could be a pain in the behind to change it. So let's move to the inside of the truck now. Now the fun part. So you got your key, we're going to power it on, and we're going to start the car up. So it runs pretty good. If you look in the mirror, you don't see any smoke belching out the tailpipe when you first start it. That's a great sign. This one, the AC was already turned on, so you feel the climate control, nice and cold air conditioning. That's a great sign. And I will get around and let the vehicle idle for a minute. See how it runs. You hear that tailpipe? Now you see a little bit of white smoke, like this little bit of kind of smoke you see. That's cold smoke. That's normal, especially the colder it gets during the year. But now if it's just belching white smoke out and it's not super cold outside, you got a problem. I forgot to add in that if there is blue smoke blowing out the tailpipe, that means the engine is burning oil. So it's another thing. The next thing you're going to do after you get the car running, you let it idle for a little bit, is you take it for a test drive. Take a good test drive with it. Not just a little, oh, here's 5 minutes up the street. Take a good 30, 40-minute drive. Make sure that engine gets nice and warm. Make sure you see it get to your the middle mark and your temperature gauge. That'll be its operating temperature. And then once it gets there, I'd gouge on it a little bit, you know. Get if you're near a highway, stomp on it. Blow the cobwebs off that thing. And then you're going to see how it's performing, how it's shifting, everything else. If it's a manual, obviously you'll know how it's shifting because you're shifting it yourself. But once you have it rolling after about a good 30-40 minute test drive, if the car drives perfectly fine, then you know, hey, okay, this is a solid car, and then you can go into your negotiations with the dealer. One thing to check too before you get out and you start negotiations, this is the last thing, and I forgot to say it first, so I'm going to bring us back around to it. Now, if you notice the vehicle pulls to the left or to the right, make note of that. So once you get out and get done with the vehicle, let's take a check the front tires. Now, a lot of dealers, especially your less good dealers, will take and they'll throw 2 tires on it, or they'll take and throw the bad tires in the back end. But you come here to the front, I mean, these are relatively newer looking tires. But if you feel it here, it feels like this, like every tread feels like that. And on the back side especially, you'll see how it's kind of chewed out a little more on this outside. Well, that means it could have either an alignment issue or a wheel bearing issue. I know this truck has an alignment issue, so that's its problem there. So make sure you take note of that. The next thing you're going to do is lay it down the ground, especially if it's a truck, it's easier to see underneath it. And that's after you've ran it, because people say, oh, it'll be fine when it's cold, you know, to check. I always say check afterwards, because if it's going to leak, especially after you've gotten it warm and drove it, you'll see it leaking. Now you see right here is your transmission, and you would see leaking around the pan or around the back of it. You'd see oil splattered everywhere. Now back here is your engine, well, up here actually, and you see there's nothing really out of the ordinary there. But if it's wet looking, you see dribbling or oil, then you know it's either got like a rear main seal leak, or it has some sort of oil leak. If it's dribbling right here where the engine and transmission meet, usually that's a rear main seal leak, and it's a very expensive job to replace and repair. So, with that being said, if you're not mechanically inclined, have the time to do it, or have the money to spend to fix it, I would walk away. Then, you could divert your attention to the back of the truck. I'm going to zoom in, but just because I'm fat and lazy. But see right here is your rear axle. And see how it's nice and clean? But if it was covered with very wet and oily, that would mean that pinion seal where the shaft goes in is leaking. And that's an expensive job. So that's another thing to have into your negotiations. Now, with that being said, if you have the ability or the extra cash to spend, that $100, $150 at your local mechanic shop to have a pre-purchase inspection done is worth it. If you can't, this is kind of the guide for you to what to check, because I understand not everybody has that extra kind of money. And a red flag is if you have that vehicle and let's say Joe Schmo has it and they refuse to let you take it to a mechanic for a pre-purchase inspection, to a local mechanic, that's a red flag. And that, to me, I would call into question on that. As someone who works on cars, I know what to look for. And usually I'm the go-to for friends and family to come check a used car out. So if you have a good mechanic friend, if they're not busy, see if they can come along with you to check it out. You know, take them to dinner, do something nice for them for helping, or even just throw them a few bucks for their time. But always get an inspection. Always inspect it, or get someone to inspect it before you purchase it. I cannot tell you the amount of times I've seen people who have just said, oh, this is a good car for a great price, and they bought the car. Next thing you know, they're crying in the office at our shop because the car is fixing to cost them $7,000 because the engine was actually on its way out the door, or the transmission, or something catastrophically expensive. If you like what I'm doing here, please let me know. If I could improve some things, please let me know as well. thank you so very much for watching. Thank you so much for your time. I plan on doing one soon for motorcycles, especially Harley Davidsons. Well, I have a Harley Davidson, and not everybody who buys motorcycles mechanically inclined. So my way of trying to help people, because I would rather see people spend their hard-earned money in a good way instead of having to lose their hard-earned money. Thank you so much for watching.